Good morning and welcome back to Gaming with ADHD, where today we are continuing our deep dive through the Alternity Player's Handbook. This is episode 8, going to cover chapters 11 and 12, weapons and armor and vehicles, which means that we are like literally one episode away from finishing the entire book. So we're gonna stall for a few minutes, let people show up. But I want to start out by just saying that I actually really like this particular format. Not the book, just of doing this read through in the morning, being able to spend about an hour to 2 hours reading, has been really good for me. The fact that that we're going through the full player's handbook, again, it's really motivating for me to keep doing it. There seems to be decent interest. Obviously, I will mix things up, so we'll do, different. What other games can? Man, I mean, I have so many. I'm literally looking at my wall of games at this point. But yeah, we could do Marvel. We can do James Bond. We can do D20 Star Wars, Legend of the Five Rings. I mean, again, there's so many options to do. So needless to say, I really like this because I've struggled with reading for a while. So I like the fact that it's given me some focus. It's helped me get off of other devices and actually work. So, anyways, needless to say, this has absolutely been a positive, 100%. So, let's see. So I did not get to stream last night. I slept through the time that I would do that. But I did talk to Peanut Gallery, and so we're going to reorganize the schedule. And starting next week, we are going to start covering on Tuesday nights the Batman role-playing game from Monolith. So look forward to that. Let's see. We're gonna, starting. Actually, yeah, next week is gonna be a whole lot of stuff starting, because Monday we're gonna do BattleTech Gothic. Me and Six World. We're going to do. So we're gonna do BattleTech Gothic. We're gonna do the Alternity Game Master's Guide, and we're going to do Batman. So we're starting 3 different books next week. So I'm super excited for this. I think this is going to be fantastic. But just realized that the microphone was completely behind me, and I don't think anybody was hearing me properly. So. All right. I am sure that I will mention everything that I said again in a little bit, so we're not going to worry about that. But otherwise, I think it's time to go ahead and let's just get started. All right. I want to do that, and then that, and ta-da, we have Chapter 11, Weapons and Armor. In heroic stories, good guys defeat villains through ingenuity, spirit, and strength of will. And sometimes, when nothing else will fill the bill, armed confrontation. In the Alternity game, the heroes must contend with fanatical terrorists, carnivorous aliens, aggressive criminals, ruthless agents, enemy soldiers, vigilant guards, and all kinds of other beings and creatures that pose a danger both to society in general and the heroes in particular. While skills and clever strategies are important, sometimes the difference between victory and defeat is the trusty weapon at a hero's side and, because the villains also have weapons, the sturdy suit of armor that covers his body. This chapter describes all the types of weapons and armor that are available to heroes and their opponents. Melee weapons, ranged weapons, heavy weapons, and armor are listed on separate tables, and the items on each table are grouped according to the progress level at which they were originally developed. Okay. So, as always, we're going to kind of cover the rules first and then look at some specifics. All right. So, we're going to start normally, if you've been watching these, you know that I normally will skip over um the tables, or not the tables, the sidebars. A lot of times I'll skip over the tables as well, but we'll skip over the sidebars. But I am going to read the sidebars here because this is pretty much where they explain all of the rules and how everything is laid out. So, how to read the weapons table. Here are brief descriptions of what the column headings on the weapon tables mean. Weapon, the common name of the weapon. So sword, bow, pistol, 9mm charge pistol, whatever. Skill, the name, often abbreviated, of the skill a character needs to avoid using the weapon untrained. ACC, accuracy, an optional rule. A number other than 0 indicates that a bonus or a penalty is applied to the wielder's skill check to account for the weapon's ability to hit its target. For example, the precise laser rifle provides a -1 bonus, while the flintlock pistol carries a +2 penalty. MD, mode, not applicable to melee weapons. This column indicates whether a weapon fires a single shot per phase, a burst, or is capable of auto fire. If the weapon can be operated in more than one mode, then the user can decide which one he wishes to employ. For more information, see automatic weapon attack modes on page 74 in skills. Range, the weapon's range expressed as personal for melee weapons and usually as a series of numbers for other weapons. The numbers represent short, medium, and long range in meters. An asterisk after personal identifies a melee weapon that can be thrown using the athletics throw skill. Type, the first listing under type describes the form of damage the weapon inflicts: low impact, high impact, or energy. Hold on one second. I know, super exciting. The second listing describes the weapon's firepower: ordinary, good, or amazing. If a weapon's firepower is inferior to the toughness of armor it is used against, any damage the weapon inflicts is degraded. Mortal damage becomes wound damage, for instance. More information on the degrading of damage is given later in this chapter. Damage, the amount of damage a weapon inflicts when used in the proper manner. Figures are given in ordinary, good, amazing order, and the appropriate damage is applied depending on the result of the wielder's skill check. Actions, an optional rule. The number of times that a weapon can be used in a single round. Clip size. For powered melee weapons, this number is equal to the number of hits the weapon can strike before its charge pack is empty and requires replacement. For ranged weapons and heavy weapons, this number describes how many shots a weapon can fire before its clip is exhausted, or for a revolver before all of its chambers are empty. A number after a slash mark indicates the number of bursts that may be fired from a single clip. Each use of a weapon in burst mode expends 1 burst, or 3 shots, of ammunition, while each use of auto fire mode expends 3 bursts. A dash to the left of a slash mark indicates the weapon can't be used in single shot mode. All right, this is where I'm going to be a little nitpicky, okay? Yes, I realize it's a magazine, but especially like if you grew up in the 80s, everything was a clip, okay? Gun nuts, yes, I get it. It's a magazine. It's a game. Who cares? Get over it. It's a clip. Okay. Clip cost. The average cost of a clip of ammunition. See? All right. Hide. If a character attempts to conceal possession of a weapon, a number here represents the penalty applied to opponent's awareness perception check to spot the weapon. A listing of dash indicates the weapon can't be concealed. Mass, the weapon's mass in kilograms. Avail of the availability of the weapon, either any, common, controlled, military, or restricted, ranging from easiest to most difficult to obtain. Any refers to weapons that also serve as tools or are otherwise available to everyone without the need of permission or regulations. Common weapons are available to anyone with money and an easy to get license. If a hero wishes to avoid the registration of such a weapon, or is for some reason unable to secure one through legal means, the cost is doubled. Controlled weapons are available to police forces, security details, criminal gangs, and to any private citizen who has a special hard-to-get license. Law enforcement agencies take a dim view of those who illegally carry and use controlled weapons. Unless a hero has legal access to such a weapon, its listed cost is tripled. Military weapons are available to the special assault squads of some police and security forces, the most aggressive criminal gangs, and illegitimate military forces. Very few licenses for military hardware are handed out, and few heroes have ready access to these weapons. Purchase of military hardware through illegal means multiplies the listed cost by a factor of 5. Restricted weapons are military weapons of great destructive power. Only military forces can acquire restricted weapons, and until they're needed, they remain under some form of control. Only those characters who are completely above or oblivious to the law can acquire such weapons. Weapons of this sort cost 10 to 20 times their listed price if procured illegally, if the game master allows them to be available at all. Cost, the average cost of the weapon. All right, so that I realize kind of dry. It's also for, going through a chart, but that way looking at these, you kind of understand how it works, what they represent. We've got, this is like our list of melee weapons. So, obviously going from progress level 0 up to, up to 8 as normal. Obviously these are all melee weapons. So why do they have a clip size and a clip cost? Well, so we've got a stun baton, chainsword, pulse baton. I mean, these are usually powered weapons, so they're going to have battery packs or energy sources, whatever. So essentially, this is how many times can you use it before you have to replace that power pack. Fairly easy to understand. All right, here's the chart for the damages. So we've got our weapon, the skill required to use it, trained. Obviously, if you don't have that, you're going to be untrained. Basically, that just makes it harder to actually successfully hit. And then here are the damage values. So like a club is, for an ordinary success, D4 plus 1 stun damage. For a good result, D4 wounds. And for an amazing, D4 plus 1 wounds. So pretty simple to follow through. So let's see. All right, so we're just going to go over just kind of like the basics of each of the progress levels, and we'll work our way through. So let's see. Melee weapons. Personal weapons are described below in the order of the progress level in which they appeared. PL0, Stone Age. Weapons associated with the Stone Age are among the most basic tools designed by human hands, made with the simplest of materials. So, pretty easy. Club, dagger, quarterstaff, so big, heavy stick. Sharp, pointy, small stick. Quarterstaff, long, skinny stick. Spear, long, skinny stick with sharp, pointy rock on it. I mean, that's progress level 1, Bronze Age, gauntlet. Okay, so a metallic glove. Hand axe, so a stick with a sharp piece of metal on the end. Mace, a big stick with a big heavy glob of metal on the end. Short sword, a really big knife. Okay. Progress level 2, Middle Ages, improvements to the axe and sword appear, as well as a new category of weapons, the pole arm. So broadsword, bigger knife, flail, stick with, chain and globs of metal at the end. Great axe, a really big stick with a really big piece of metal on the end. Yeah, I'm being a dork on these. I'm sorry. All right. Age of Reason. Variations on the sword grow popular while development in other personal arms slows because of the advent of firearms. So, cutlass, katana, rapier, saber. Industrial Age. The dominance of gunpowder weapons is established, and the only significant advance in personal weapons is an accessory for the rifle. Bayonet. You run out of bullets. What's a rifle? It's a very well designed stick. Okay. Put a knife on the end of it. Now you have a stick with a pointy piece of metal on it. I realize I'm kind of being a dork on that, but again, it's just a way to think about it as far as, because remember, these items do cross over into different progress levels. You're going to have, it may be progress level 8 with super high tech equipment, but at the end of the day, I found a wrench. Okay, well, there's no entry in the table for wrench. We've got so say wrench would be progress level 4. Okay, well, the only entry in progress level 4 is a bayonet. Okay, but a wrench at the end of the day, it's a club. So you're going to need that melee bludgeon skill to use it, quote unquote, trained. The skills still apply across, just different things to consider. So that's why I'm kind of being a dork about the different kind of things that you can find in the progress levels, just so that you understand how they're different, or how they can still be used. All right, so Information Age. While firearms continue to develop, research into melee weapons is at its lowest point ever. Combat Knife. This is a high-tech version of the standard dagger or knife. So again, we're going back to progress level 1. So it's going to be, better materials, stronger metals, carbon fiber, handles, lightweight, all sorts of things like that. Stun Baton. It's a stick with a battery on it to, hit them with a cattle prod, stuff like that. Progress level 6, Fusion Age. Personal arms gain respect again as new technology, resulting in the first powered melee weapons, expands the scope of what close quarters weapons can do. Chainsword. Okay. It's a saw on a stick. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Pulse Baton, the first powered melee weapon capable of inflicting lethal damage. The Pulse Baton is a half-meter long rod that delivers a concentrated energy discharge when it hits its target. While the baton appears to be a simple flashlight, the operator must wear a pair of insulated gloves to prevent accidental discharge. Gravity Age. Powered weapons appear in increasing variety and weapon and power. The personal weapon is reborn as more and more combat occurs between units and small groups instead of armies. What's up? You're wrong. Yes, you're wrong. It's a ghetto lightsaber. Exactly. So, Grav Mace. The Grav Mace consists of a meter-long handle with a gravitonic capacitor inside a striking head. Powerful capacitors manipulate the weapon's mass, making it strike like a sledgehammer while being swung like a willow switch. Power Cestus. The power cestus consists of an elbow-length gauntlet of carbonate fiber weave, ending in a heavy fighting glove that covers the user's hand. Gravity technology allows the wielder to strike blows of astonishing power with a gloved hand. Okay, that's an interesting one, or play a game of Hyali, one of the two. Future Hyali. Dreadball gets to play Dreadball, which I think Mantic is getting ready to re-release again. I'm not entirely sure why that game goes out of print. It's a great game. I need to cover more Dreadball on the channel. We had a samurai that named his the Cracklighter. Okay. Did you play Alternity? You're wrong. Because so far, I've only met a couple of people that have actually played. I haven't played. That's part of the reason I'm doing the read-through. I never played, so I'm going to do a read-through. All right. Progress level 8, Energy Age. Melee weapons of this period approach and even exceed the capabilities of many ranged weapons. The miniaturization of the mass reactor to a personal level allows for the creation of fantastic new weapons, such as the Star Sword. The Star Sword generates a complex, phased magnetic field in the rough shape of a sword. Okay, there's your lightsaber. Not so ghetto anymore. Energy blade then fills the interior of this field with a white hot plasma. On contact, the containment field releases a stream of plasma that can burn or cut through almost anything. The Star Sword is difficult to use and often damages an untrained wielder. Critical failure when using it suffers good damage, 2d6 wounds, and on a failure result takes ordinary damage, d6 plus 1 wound. A trained wielder suffers ordinary damage on a critical failure. Tri-staff. This 2-meter long staff is topped by a 3-pronged blade. When the staff is activated, an internal power source suffuses it with a soft glow. This aura acts as a defensive force field that improves the strength and dexterity resistance modifiers of its wielder by 1 step. Okay. Settled on playing Traveler after a few sessions, but you liked it. Okay. I'll be honest. As I've been doing the read through, I'm enjoying it. I think it's an interesting game, and I think it got done dirty. Personal opinion, but I have some ideas. It's inspired me for something else that I'm working on to be announced later. But I like what Alternity has done, and so we'll see. I'm gonna have some fun with it. All right. Let's see. As far as space RPGs, Alternity, I remember it being easy as a player to grab and get into. Yeah, when I like the first episode I did where we went through the quick play rules, very much like reminded me of the Star Wars role-playing game. Like they were like old D6 Star Wars. So yeah, it was very, very easy to grasp and get comfortable with. So all right, ranged weapons. As early as the dawn of civilization, the ability of ranged weapons to neutralize enemies from afar was recognized as an advantage. The projectiles that ranged weapons expel became increasingly more lethal as technology takes its strides. The powerful energy weapons developed at high progress levels bear virtually no resemblance to their humble ancestor, the bow and arrow. All right, let's skip ahead a little bit to get the sidebar. Here's our table. A lot of the sidebar stuff is going to be the same, but we're still going to read through it. Basically, the sidebars on this are a lot more relevant, in my opinion. Oh, is that? Oh, I thought there was a sidebar for. I am wrong. Probably giving everyone a seizure at this point. I apologize. Okay, yeah, so it's just one table on that. Okay. All right, so Stone Age, aside from thrown weapons originally intended for use in melee combat, the early bow and sling represent the first use of ranged weapons. So we've got a short bow and a sling. Bronze Age, we go up to javelin, so basically a thrown pointy stick. Middle Ages, improvements in bow design bring about the longbow and the crossbow, while the specialized throwing weapons such as the shuriken also appear. So longbow, crossbow, shuriken. Age of Reason, the significant advancement of this progress level is the development of firearms typified by the flintlock. So we've got musket, pistols, and rifles. Industrial Age, the age of industrialism saw firearms go into mass production, even as the same weapons improved in sophistication and stopping power. So Derringer, the smallest pistols ever made, these weapons appeared with flintlock actions early in the 19th century, but didn't become popular until the 1870s. Pistol, 32 caliber revolver, 45 caliber revolver, 30 caliber bolt action rifle. So again, these are pretty common, even for modern understanding. So remember, here's the chart. So the common name of the weapon, skill required to use it, trained, any accuracy bonuses or penalties, what was MD? Mode. Okay, that's right. The mode, can it go single fire, burst fire, or auto fire? Then ranges in meters. Keep in mind, it's effective ranges. It's not supposed to be like maximum perfect ranges. Game masters, if they want to shoot outside of normal, like short range. Well, I mean, short, medium, and long. Long is 60 meters. So to be reasonably accurate at 60 meters with a pistol, that's fine. So then high impact, ordinary damage. So remember, ordinary determines how it's going to interact with armor. If you have ordinary damage versus good armor, then the good armor is better and will reduce more damage, things like that. So like down here on progress level 7, the mass pistol, it's an energy weapon with good damage. So against good armor, it's not going to take any penalties. All right, more weapons, more lists. All right, let's look at this. Buying outmoded hardware. With the permission of your game master, you can purchase weapons and armor from an earlier progress level for your hero. In fact, a great portion of society probably uses hardware that's a little out of date until something forces them to change. For example, the charge pistol is a PL6 technology, but it's still a common sidearm in the PL7 universe. Generally, a hardware item that's one level behind the campaign setting is available for its listed price. Hardware older than one previous progress level may appeal to your image of your hero. An eccentric space pirate who insists on carrying a cutlass makes perfect sense if he's played right. But finding a cutlass in PL6 or PL7 campaign setting might not be easy. Weapons and armor that are more than one level removed from the current progress level usually aren't readily available, and if such an item can be located, it will almost always be more expensive than its list price. Price increase can vary from 30 to 600%, so 3d20 times 10. Okay. As your multiplier, so that's fine. That's okay. I like that. I think that's fun. Just as far as like, okay, you're trying to get something that's already like it's old, so people are not necessarily saving it and keeping it. So it's going to be more rare. That okay. I like that. I like that. Assuming the game master determines the item is available at all. If a character finds himself on a world or in a society that's at a progress level lower than his own, many hardware items that are out of date in his frame of reference might be easier to come by. Also makes sense. All right. So, rifles, assault rifles. The more technology advances, the more we lose the technology that created. That's fair. Um, I but like things like the cutlass, you know, people are still going to know how to make knives. So something like that, especially like in the future, it's going to be more, decorative for your space pirate. I think even getting it made would not be too difficult. Um, but you know, um, we still have no idea how Romans invented concrete. I haven't looked into that much. Maybe I should do that on my wikis channel. Now you got me. Now you have me curious. Roman concrete. There's a straight up article. I don't think you're entirely accurate on that. You're wrong. I think you are wrong this time. we're just gonna throw that out there. And I am going to throw that on my list of Wikipedia articles to read for my second channel. You made me think of something. I like that. It'll be a shorter video. It's not a very long article, but there we go. Roman concrete. So as far as that's concerned, all right. As far as that's concerned, it's close enough for what I'm using it for my second channel. I realize that there's bias. I realize there's some issues there, but it's close enough. Anyways, I'm just saying I think you might be wrong. Anyways, I'll read it. We'll find out later. We'll, I don't know. It's not that important, but it'll be fun. All right. Electrochemical weapons. Development of the mechanical action firearm ceases in the fusion age. The firing pin is replaced with an electrical contact connected to a powerful battery. Powder is likewise replaced by a chemical mix that superheats into plasma when electrocuted by sufficient voltage. A charged firearm is several times more powerful than a standard firearm. The charged firearm uses electrochemical action to produce a super high muzzle velocity. A PL5 rifle might shoot a bullet with a velocity of 1,000 meters per second, but an electrochemical rifle can easily throw a slug at the rate of 3,000 meters per second. Consequently, the charged rifle shoots farther and flatter and delivers more energy to the target. In fact, charged weapons have such a high muzzle velocity that special tumbling or expanding bullets must be used in order to deliver sufficient impact energy to the target. Charged weapons require a clip of electrochemical charges, which resemble normal bullets, and a powerful battery capable of delivering shocks in the 40,000 volt range. Okay. Anyways, they're just trying to get to fancy space weapons and give some excuses for them. 9mm 0G pistol. This charged pistol has a sophisticated anti-recoil system to neutralize the gun's movement. It allows the user to fire the weapon in weightless conditions without throwing himself into awkward tumbles or turns. Okay, that's fun. Keep in mind, this portion of the book, I'm spot reading because I'm not reading every single entry. All right. Superconductor technology. In the early part of the gravity age, the discovery of a true superconducting metallic alloy, a mixture of lanthanum and several other ores. I love how they'll do that, where they'll take, like, they're like, oh, we solved this, with a mixture of lanthanum and other things, and they don't actually specify what the other things are. just other things. So it gives it, kind of, right. See, exactly. They like, just making it up. But again, it makes it sound real, even though they're not having to justify how it actually works. I love when they do stuff like that. But you're right, you're wrong. It is mostly technobabble. In addition to making magnetic accelerators, levitation, and 100% efficient electric motors possible, an application of this same technology allows the building of enormously powerful capacitors in a very small space. All kinds of handheld items use energy cells that put chemical batteries of earlier eras to shame. Two important weapons applications emerge from the superconductor technology. First, handheld railguns, accelerators, and other such devices are made possible by lanthanide alloy coils. Second, weapons requiring a strong source of electrical power, such as the charge firearms, make use of lanthanide capacitors. Lanth cells resemble the flat disk batteries of PL5, though they are 2 to 3 times as thick. The way Star Trek uses technobabble to make the universe seem real. Oh, science. Okay. Yeah, exactly. That is exactly it. Let's see. PL7 Gravity Age. Personal weapons expand in diversity thanks to the advent of mass technology and the continued refinement of energy distribution. In this age, the first true energy weapons come into use, weapons that don't expel physical projectiles and thus are not subject to the laws of inertia. Ranged energy weapons can be used in light gravity or zero gravity without causing problems to the user because of recoil. The new lanthanide capacitor is the basis for energy cells for weapons at this progress level. These power packs still last for 4 hours, 4 clips worth of ammunition, but cost $200 each. All right. Then they've got rules for prepared explosives, dynamite, landmine, plastic explosives, satchel charges, primer cord, plasma jelly, area effect weapons. So basically, this is, an explosive. How much damage does it do out to certain meters away from the explosive? So pretty simple there. All right. Energy Age. Energy Age ranged weapons become subtle and accurate without surrendering the ability to deal out lethal damage. Maser technology, making use of microwave radiation, extends the range of personal firearms. Ray guns, like literal old school pulp era ray guns. That's awesome. All right. Amazing damage. As noted in Chapter 3, Heroes in Action, someone who takes amazing damage from an attack must succeed on a stamina endurance skill check to avoid falling unconscious. It's important to remember that this rule also applies to amazing damage from area effect weapons such as grenades and prepared explosives. A character who's right next to a grenade when it goes off not only suffers heavy damage, but might be knocked out of action for the rest of the scene. Yay, charts and equations for explosives. Not think of those from the Shadowrun rules. Good point, Glenn. Hey, I mean, it's explosives. I mean, you kind of have to take that, but I mean, it's not like this isn't even very difficult. It's Yeah, like this is the amount of damage, and then how far away from, from blast point. Yeah, it's not anything that I would worry about. Because especially most of the amazing stuff is contact. Everything else is, 2 to 8 meters. Yeah, I get that, but I mean, you kind of have to do it with grenades and explosives. It makes sense. I tried to play Shadowrun. It's way too rules heavy. I have been needing to do a read through of the 6 World Rulebook, and I'm thinking I might do that. I'm thinking I might do that for the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday stream. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. All right, heavy weapons. For destructive power, heavy weapons are unmatched. This military-grade weaponry grows in popularity as the ages pass, given its advantages in the ability to penetrate armor and general stopping power. For Industrial Age, although heavy weapons such as the ballista, catapult, and cannon existed previously, the Industrial Age sees the development of the first personal heavy weapons. So we've got flamethrowers, frag grenades, machine guns, and rocket launchers. Information Age advances the information in the Information Age, enhance the abilities of heavy weapons, and the sophisticated use of grenades or handheld bombs becomes standard. So we get grenade launchers, concussion grenades, incendiary grenades, smoke grenades. Okay. Hey, that's great, Glenn. I'm Glenn. You've come around enough. I'm happy whenever you show up, so it's all good. All right. Fusion Age. Heavy weapon development in the Fusion Age concentrates on improving existing weaponry using the technology advances of the period. Bantam launcher fires miniature Bantam rockets. Okay, so it's a Stinger missile. Bantam anti-aircraft rocket, Bantam anti-personnel rocket, Bantam anti-vehicular rocket. Okay. Gravity Age stands as a crowning era for heavy weapons as more efficient power sources and significant advances in miniaturization technology made formerly unprecedented destructive power available to individuals. Arc gun, so basically a lightning cannon. Stutter cannon, a heavy weapon that consists of a backpack and attached gun, is designed to disperse or otherwise handle a crowd without the use of lethal force. Produces compressed sonic waves that deliver hammer-like blows against targets. Rail cannon, pulse grenade, tracer grenade, plasma gun, quantum minigun. Energy Age. Energy Age heavy weapons continue the trend of the past, adding new methods of delivering energy. Bantam Star Load, Maser Cannon, Mass Grenade, Mass Launcher. Cool. I know. Super exciting to just, speed run through all that. But don't forget, we're doing 2 chapters today. All right, armor. Just as weapons improve over millennia, various types of armor emerge over time to protect the vulnerable hero from the deadly array of arms he might encounter. Armor isn't impervious, but it's better than nothing, and a complete suit of armor can guard its wearer against all but the most well-aimed blows. The finest armor types of the highest progress level are self-contained tanks, equipped with onboard sensors, computers, and weapon systems, and are appropriate only on the battlefield. In civilized areas, most people view unconcealed armor in much the same way they view a holstered sidearm. It's an indication that the individual expects to shoot and get shot at. All right. So where's the sidebar? Okay, how to read the armor table. All right. Here are brief descriptions on what the column headings on table P41 mean. Armor, the common name of the armor. Skill, the armor operation skill or one of its specialty skills is necessary to use the armor with full effectiveness. This listing identifies the skill in question. AP, action penalty. The mass and bulk of heavier armors act to slow down its user. A number other than 0 here indicates a penalty that is applied to each action check made by the wearer and to the wearer's dexterity resistance modifier. Type, the toughness rating of the armor, either ordinary or good. The amazing armor rating is reserved for vehicles. See chapter 12. Hey, we're going to get there. A weapon with an ordinary rating has its damage degraded by 1 level when used against armor with a good rating. Armor with an ordinary rating provides the wearer with no such benefit. So remember, if your weapon does ordinary damage against good armor, basically you're going to, you're going to degrade any damage that you take. So mortal becomes wounded, wounded becomes stunned, stunned becomes nothing. LIHIEN. Each type of armor is rated for its effectiveness in stopping primary damage in each of the 3 categories: low impact, high impact, and energy. When a character wearing armor is hit by an attack, the number of the appropriate section of this column is subtracted from the damage caused by the attack. If the subtraction of a number from a die roll, such as D4 minus 1, yields a result of 0 or less, the armor failed to absorb any damage on that attack. For shields and helmets, a number without a die roll, such as +1, represents a constant quantity that is subtracted from any damage caused. Hide, if a character attempts to conceal the fact he's wearing armor by putting another garment over it. A number here represents the penalty applied to an opponent's awareness perception check to spot the armor. A listing of dash indicates the armor can't be concealed. Mass, the armor's mass in kilograms. Availability, the availability of the armor, any common controlled military restricted. So we already covered that in the weapon sidebar, ranging from easiest to most difficult to obtain. For definition, see how to read the weapons tables, like I just said. All right, and then cost, the average cost of the armor. All right, so let's scroll back up and look at the table. All right. I think I'm just going to use this to go through it. So progress level 0, we've got hide armor. So skill is armor operation, no specialty. Action penalty is +1. So you're gonna take a 1-step penalty for that. Ordinary, D6 -3 against light impact, D4 -3 against high impact, and D6 -4 against energy. Mass of 10, availability any, cost 100. So again, pretty easy to read, pretty easy to understand, in my opinion. But then, so progress level 1, we've got leather armor, helm, and small shields. Progress level 2, chainmail, full plate, partial plate, medium shield. Glenn, is that a joke or not? I mean, I think it's reasonable. I mean, you still see a lot of the same kind of stuff, across progress levels. But I think you could easily make an argument. I think you could also make an argument progress level 5 assault gear isn't as good against stopping damage from progress level 7. I'm kind of making this up on the fly because I don't have anything I didn't read anything specific about it, but it would make sense to me. But regardless, I mean, they do give you at least a few varieties for each progress level. And then there are also books for weapons and equipment, for Star Drive, for Dark Matter. So they give you there's going to be more variety as well. I was just making sure that because again, I wasn't sure if it was a joke, but I don't know. I like it. You know me, I'm bad at reading everything, so while I should be able to compare it to Shadowrun, I can't off the top of my head. All right, aliens in armor. Knight armor in space would be funny. Nobody would hear it clank. That's true. All right, aliens in armor. Some alien species find it difficult to fit into armor that was originally designed for humans. Thrall and Mechalus heroes have little trouble adapting, but other species are not so fortunate. In any campaign that includes alien heroes, the game master has the option of declaring that certain types or all types of armor available to humans have also been tailored to fit the alien body shape. In most cases, however, this means that members of other species can't make use of the armor of a fallen comrade or enemy. Even if such tailored armor is available, some combinations of aliens and armor may be impossible. A Sashayan in a body tank, for instance, and others might only be obtainable for a price that exceeds the listed cost. Yeah, that's common sense. I actually like that. It's like they've already established that, humans are the most populous species. Everything else is, you know, like rare at best, I think is what they originally said. But I mean, it's like you'd have like one Thrall for every, say, 20 humans or something. So, if you're trying to make things restrictive, things like that, it's not hard to work with. All right, degrading damage. In addition to being able to absorb damage, armor that's especially thick or tough protects its wearer in another way by causing the type of damage he or she suffers to be degraded. Here's how it works. If a character using a weapon of ordinary firepower gets a successful hit against someone wearing armor with a good toughness rating, the severity of the primary damage is degraded by 1 level. Mortal damage becomes wound damage turns into stun, and stun damage is negated. Secondary damage is calculated after the original damage is degraded. So, for example, a character wearing a body tank, good toughness, is targeted by an enemy wielding a quantum rifle, energy weapon, ordinary firepower. The enemy gets an amazing success and deals out 6 points of mortal damage. This damage is immediately degraded to 6 wounds, and then 3 points of secondary stun damage are assessed. The result of the armor roll for the body tank is 5, meaning that only 1 point of wound damage gets through to the wearer. Also, because the character in the body tank has rank 2 in armor operation, powered armor, he is able to shake off 1 point of the secondary damage. What started out as a potentially lethal hit has ended up causing only 1 point of wound damage and 2 points of stun damage. Note, when a character is struck by a weapon whose damage will degrade against his armor, he is not subject to being knocked out as the result of being hit by an amazing success. Some vehicles and other objects have amazing toughness ratings. Even a weapon of good firepower has its damage downgraded against such an object, and damage done by weapons of ordinary firepower is degraded twice. Mortal damage becomes stun, and wounds and stuns are ignored. So remember, amazing is typically vehicles. So, again, you're just like now, your 9mm pistol is not going to do any damage to a tank. All right, layering armor. A character might have his reasons for wearing one type of armor over another one, but doing so does not provide extra protection. On any particular attack, someone who wears layers of armor only enjoys the protection of one of those layers. Use dice rolls to determine how much damage each layer of armor absorbs, but apply only the best result. Note also that even though only one layer of armor actually provides protection, the penalties to a character's action check and dexterity resistance modifier are cumulative, as is the mass. The game master will determine whether 2 types of armor can even be put on at the same time. Many combinations are outright impossible. This restriction also applies to characters who have natural armor, such as Tasa, and those who possess body armor as the result of a mutation or a cybernetic enhancement. All right. I don't know if I like that very much. I can see a reason for that, to keep it simple, so that way you're not having to deal with just slowing down a combat way too much. Um, hmm. I don't. Yeah, you're wrong. I'll agree with that. These are ways for the GM to control the situation, not let it get out of hand. That's fair. Um, yeah, I don't want you to have God armor tech. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't mind saying okay, there are restrictions, but like, um, say you have like a plate carrier, like quote unquote modern, for example. Um, but then you have it over, say, like an armor weave trench coat. Okay. And I'm making this up on the fly. So, say it's like progress level 6, maybe progress level 7, an equivalent thing. Like your vest is going to be one layer, but like being like, say you have like a combat, like a ballistic trench coat, you know, if they're layered on top of each other, I think you'd still get some sort of protection, but well, determining damage isn't very complicated. Um I'm not sure if you were here for it, but let's scroll up real quick to a weapon table. That's the cost. All right, so here. So like let's see. Wait, no, that's explosives. I don't want explosives. Or that was heavy weapons. That's what it was. There we go. Here's what I'm looking for. Okay. So 15 millimeters pistol. Um uh mod pistol. I forget. Okay. So this is the skill that you need to use it trained. I forget exactly which skill it is. I'd have to go back and look. But so you've got your pistol skill. Okay. And you say, okay, I'm gonna shoot at the guy. And do all of your calculations. And so you're rolling a d20 minus d4. Okay. So you're trying to get lower than your target number. Say your target number is 12. Okay. Well, if you roll under a 12, then you're going to do this much damage. 2d4 wounds. Okay. If you roll under a 6, you're going to do this one. 2d4 plus 1 wounds. If you roll under this or under a 3, then you're going to do d4 plus 3 mortal wounds. Okay. So all of your damage is calculated by the success you get in shooting the pistol. The difficulty to hit the target is already calculated in your in the dice that you roll, your d20, your d20 control die plus your other situation dice. So so it's actually, I'll be honest, I think like calculating the damage is actually one of the easiest bits. The layering, like I agree with you're wrong in that they're probably just wanting to keep it from quote unquote getting out of control. So this way it's just like, you calculate the how much damage it is absorbed by each layer, and then just use the best one. So one stops 4 damage, one stops 2 damage. Will only say, or you'll only stop, or you'll stop the 4 damage, not the 4 and the 2. Well, no, one player rolls for wounds. So the attacker rolls for like how much damage he does. The defender rolls to see how much their armor stops. The degrading armor, you're not degrading the armor, you're degrading the type of damage the weapon does. So there's stun, wounds, and mortal. And so if you're degrading because you've got good armor versus ordinary damage, then you're going from mortal to wounds, wounds to stun, stuns to stopped. Okay. I will be honest, I'm surprised that I'm following all of this. Like it actually, like it's making sense. Maybe it's because I'm reading through the book, plus I'm also watching the episodes from Legion of Myth. And the way that Max is approaching it is, this is the way this works. So absolutely go check out his videos as well. His channel's linked in the description. I forgot to say that at the beginning of the video, everybody, so I do apologize, Max. But yeah, you're right. Talking about it helps, but yeah, it seems I can admit it does seem complicated, but I don't think it is. And like I said, I think you're wrong is correct here in that basically it's just like, okay, you can put multiple armors on, but you're never going to get to a point where it's like, haha, I have rendered all of your shots worthless against me because I'm just, covered in armor. It's just it's most likely just a way to minimize munchkinization, as it were. So at least that's the explanation that I'm going with, and I think it's a good one. All right. Damage to armor. Depending on the type of campaign you're in, your game master may ignore the damage to armor, or may decide that armor gets hurt just as characters do, and therefore needs to be repaired. Here's a simple system for handling damage to armor. Character wearing armor suffers enough wound damage to use up more than half his wound points, or if he suffers any amount of mortal damage, then his armor has been damaged and must be repaired in order to regain its full effectiveness. Damaged armor doesn't stand up well against later attacks, which translates into a 1 point or 2 point subtraction from the amount of damage the armor absorbs on any successful attack made after it becomes damaged. These subtractions are not cumulative. For example, a CF soft suit worn by a character who has less than half of his wound points remaining becomes rated at D6 -1, D6 -1, D6 -2 instead of the normal D6, D6, D6 -1. Unless the wearer has any amount of mortal damage, in which case it's weakened to D6 -2, D6 -2, D6 -3 until it's repaired. For special types of armor, such as the deflection harness, displacer soft suit, and stealth soft suit, subtraction is applied to the benefit of the wearer. The wearer receives from the armor. I'll read that in a second. Damaged armor can be repaired by succeeding at a complex skill check using the technical science repair skill. This is a check of amazing complexity, requiring 8 to 10 successes. If the wearer of the armor has any mortal damage, or a check of good complexity, 5 to 7 successes if the wearer has only wound damage. If all of a character's mortal points are used up while he is wearing armor, the game master can declare his armor can't be salvaged. Okay, I realize those are all optional rules, but I like all of them. Another way to limit the power play, quote, okay, here's great armor. Enjoy it while it lasts. I'm going to hit it with rockets now. Yes, exactly. You're wrong. Thank you. All right. Obviously, we've got more descriptions of all the types of armor, special abilities they give. All right. So that covers weapons and armor. Any questions? Anybody not understand anything while we went through? Do we need to go back and hash it out again? I don't think so. but I'm happy to do so if we need to. Overall, I do think that system actually works out really well. The attacker, their attack roll automatically determines what kind of damage they're going to do. So then they just roll, figure out the amount of damage. Defender rolls for their armor to see how much damage they reduce, and then takes that much damage. Done. I actually think it's a fairly reasonable, fairly simple system. No going God mode by layering armor. Makes it's clear as river water. We'll go with that. It's better than mud, but I mean, All right. Let's get started on chapter 12 because I would like to go to bed sometime today. All right, chapter 12, vehicles. An entire adventure can take place inside a confined space, and heroes might need nothing more than their own 2 feet for motive power. But more often than not, succeeding on a mission involves traveling, getting from a starting point to a destination, and perhaps also being able to move around at high speed to catch someone or avoid being caught. That's where vehicles come in. This chapter describes some of the basic vehicles available in the Alternity universe, from primitive rafts to star-spanning spaceships. It provides brief rules for using these vehicles in chases and in combat, and for what happens when 2 vehicles attempt to occupy the same place at the same time. Accidents. Each of the land, water, air, and space vehicles described here is a stock vehicle with average characteristics. More options and details on vehicle customization in combat can be found in the Game Master Guide, coming next week. Not necessarily vehicles, but the Game Master Guide is coming next week. All right. Vehicle descriptions. Vehicles on the following pages give characteristics and statistics for all available vehicles. They're grouped on the table and described in the text order of the progress level at which each type of vehicle is developed. Vehicles that came into being at lower progress levels remain available at higher progress levels and often have better characteristics, blah, blah, blah. We've already covered that. That's how progress levels work. So up through the Age of Reason, we've got canoes, rafts, rowboats, sailing ships. Industrial Age, we get bicycles, cabin cruisers, motor cars, motor yachts, propeller planes, speedboats, tanks. Information Age, compact car, executive jet, fighter jets. Let's see. All right. Okay, we're gonna skip the stats on the vehicles because I want to get over to reading the rules. But obviously, you've got the chart, shows all the different types of vehicles that are available. Oh, I like this. Rules for used vehicles. Basically, it costs less. You might have to fix it. Space vehicle statistics. Let's see. Every space vehicle has a number of characteristics that aren't mentioned. Hull size, weapon and armor and defenses, drive space, compartments, and random damage. Okay, so basically to figure out what's inside your Millennium Falcon. All right, let's start here. Vehicle combat. Since this is actually rule stuff, everything else, that's information. Speaking of cars, my wife told me to wash the car today with our son. Crazy. I agree that it is crazy. I think you should use rags, soap, and water. Might be a little easier. Your son's kind of heavy. See? I beat you to the joke, Glenn. We're nothing but professionals here, folks. All right, vehicle combat. In vehicle combat, 2 or more vehicles battle or chase each other, or a vehicle takes on a character on foot. Vehicle combat scenes revolve around high-speed attacks and high-speed chases, usually both at the same time. Heroes use vehicle operation and its specialty skills to operate vehicles. If a vehicle requires more than a single operator, such as large spaceships and ocean vessels, Vehicle operation is the skill used by the pilot or driver, and the other operators use some aspect of the system operation skill. Some vehicles can't be operated untrained. This includes all air and space vehicles and some military land and water vehicles. Depending on the campaign, some vehicles that require trained operators may have computer assistance programming to talk a hero through the process. Computer programs can also be used to operate some vehicle systems, including the actual driving in futuristic settings. Riggers, for example. For vehicles that can be operated by a single character, the vehicle operation skill covers not only driving or flying the craft, but also firing its weapons, if it has weapons, and operating any built-in equipment, including communication, sensors, navigation, computers, and defensive gear. Vehicles are treated much like heroes and any other characters. They have their own game statistics, their own advantages and disadvantages, and sometimes even their own personalities that make them unique characters in their own right. Some heroes become so attached to their vehicles and so identified with them that the vehicles take on greater significance over the course of the campaign, like the Millennium Falcon. Vehicle versus vehicle. When single operator vehicles such as cars, helicopters, speedboats, and jets engage in combat, use these rules. The battle or chase begins. The Game Master sets the opening distance between the vehicles, depending on the needs of the scene and the nature of the situation. Throughout the scene, the most important consideration is where the vehicles are in relation to each other, how far one vehicle is from the other in any given phase. Their surroundings are only important because of the obstacles, hazards, and conditions they might present. Rounds of action. Vehicle combat works much like personal combat in that activity takes place within rounds that are divided into 4 phases, and every round starts with an action check. But vehicle combat differs from personal combat in a couple of significant ways. First, a vehicle in motion continues to move in each phase of the round. Second, regardless of whether he has an action available, the driver or pilot can control his vehicle in every phase by performing a routine maneuver. During a phase in which the operator of a vehicle is entitled to an action, he can attempt to perform a moderate or extreme maneuver, try to employ vehicular systems such as weapons or defenses, or attempt a tactics check. Characters riding as passengers in a vehicle can also perform actions according to their action check result. The options open to passengers are performing an action with a vehicle system, using a piece of personal equipment or a weapon, or making a tactics check. The result of all actions and any penalties associated with those actions are applied at the end of each phase, just like normal. So a weapon that strikes in the good phase may destroy a vehicle before its operator can do anything other than use a routine maneuver. The scene continues for as many rounds as necessary until one side wins the combat or chase, both vehicles stop moving due to damage, or one or both vehicles get away, successfully hide, or simply decide to end the combat or pursuit. Okay. Right here, obviously, still need to read about how like the basic maneuvers work, but or routine maneuvers, sorry. Over so far this sounds relatively easy. You know, it's basic. Like it's not really changing the combat rules. It's essentially just adding, the fact that cars keep moving. So, however, whatever the amount of time a phase represents, the cars are not going to stop for, say, those 5 seconds or whatever because you can't act in the amazing phase. No, I think this makes, I think it makes perfect sense so far as described. All right, let's see. Okay, interesting. I'm going to read this. All right, just so you know, this combat system doesn't pretend to be utterly realistic and all-encompassing. Instead, it's designed to simulate the types of battles and chases seen in heroic fiction. And it's designed to handle these scenes quickly and in a role-playing fashion. With that in mind, don't look for counters or miniatures or markers of any kind. This isn't that type of combat system. The Game Master Guide does provide an additional level of detail if you're into that, however. Also note that everything discussed herein is meant for use in dramatic situations. In other words, vehicle operation checks aren't needed for everyday driving or flying. Skill checks only come into play when the stakes are raised and the situation gets hairy. Remember the basic rule: not every action requires a die roll. Okay. I like that they're saying right up front, hey, this is, you know, this is cinematic. So have fun with it. All right. Maneuvers. A maneuver is an activity undertaken by a vehicle operator to control or direct his moving vehicle. Every maneuver is rated as either routine, moderate, or extreme, depending on its complexity or innate difficulty. The operator of a moving vehicle can perform one routine maneuver in every phase, even if his action check indicates that he's not entitled to an action in that phase. To perform a moderate or extreme maneuver, he must spend an action during a phase in which he is entitled to do so. Routine maneuvers are simple course changes and reflexive activities such as accelerating, decelerating, braking, swerving, turning, taking off, landing, hovering, or diving. In its simplest form, a routine maneuver allows an operator to follow a road or fly straight and not run into anything. So, okay, yeah, this is fine. So, accelerate. Okay, I'm trying to get away, so I'm going to accelerate. So I want to go faster, etc. Until you get to like the max speed of the vehicle. You can make lane changes. I'm gonna, go in, like I see somebody in the lane ahead of me, so I'm gonna get over so that I can keep accelerating through. Again, simple, you know, simple activities. Moderate maneuvers are more difficult, requiring concentration and thought. To perform any moderate maneuver, a driver or pilot must make a successful vehicle operation skill check. Moderate maneuvers include such activities as making a tight turn, stalling or recovering from a stall, reversing direction, pulling out of a dive, attempting to ram another vehicle, slamming on the brakes, or trying to regain control of a vehicle in a skid or spin. Using a vehicle system or making a tactics check while performing a routine maneuver to guide a vehicle is also considered a moderate maneuver. Attempting to change intentions is a moderate maneuver. Finally, a moderate maneuver is required for an operator to perform a routine maneuver in any situation when his skill check carries a situation penalty of +1 or +2. For example, it's easy. A routine maneuver for the driver of a car to tap the brakes and make a right-angled turn at a reasonable rate of speed if the road is smooth and dry. But if he tries to do the same thing at high speed, +1 penalty. On a slippery surface, another +1 penalty. He'll most likely have to perform a moderate maneuver to have a chance of pulling it off. If no other penalty applies because of the situation, attempting a moderate maneuver automatically carries a +1 penalty to the operator's skill check. All that is reasonable. I would add in driving down the freeway and there's enough distance between the cars in front of you that you can make a lane change, but you've got to do it super quick because you basically got to get up on top of the other guy, and you have cars distance room to move over. That guy that doesn't want to let you merge in. Even though you're all going 90 miles an hour, you know who that guy is. So, but in this case, maybe you need to do it. So I would rate something like that as a moderate skill. But again, all this is pretty if you're driving to work normally, it's a routine maneuver. If you're driving to work to get there on time because you have ADHD and you left 10 minutes late, as always, that's moderate. Extreme maneuvers are the most difficult to perform. They include a variety of special stunts such as rolls, loops, and zigzag driving. High-risk defensive driving, such as screeching to a halt and doing a 180-degree turn simultaneously, and performing a moderate maneuver while using a vehicle system or making a tactics check in the same phase. Also, an extreme maneuver is required for an operator to perform a routine maneuver in any situation when his skill check carries a situation penalty of +3 or more. So again, same kind of premise as previously, but +3. Are there different rules for flying vehicles? I'm not sure, Glenn. I haven't gotten there yet, but hang out and we'll get there. All right. Also take into account other possible modifiers, such as for the operator being wounded. Okay, that's another interesting point. If no other penalties apply because of the situation, attempting an extreme maneuver automatically carries a +3 penalty for the operator's skill check. Range and intention. For purposes of these vehicle combat rules, everything you need to know about who's chasing whom and which way they're going is represented by two factors: the range separating the vehicle and each vehicle's intentions regarding the other. The range between two vehicles is determined by the game master at the beginning of the scene. The setting and circumstances of the battle govern the initial range of the fight. Two cars in a close quarters chase might only be 50 or 60 meters apart, while two spaceships might open the battle at a range of several thousand kilometers. The range between the two vehicles changes each phase. If a car moving at 200 kilometers per hour is chasing another car traveling at only 100 kilometers per hour, the faster car will close the gap at a relative speed of 100 kilometers per hour or 100 meters per phase. If the two cars were 600 meters apart at the beginning of the round, the faster car will reduce this to 500, 400, 300, and finally 200 meters in the amazing, good, uh, ordinary, and marginal phases of the action round. However, not all vehicle combats are as cut and dried as a simple linear chase on a straight highway. What if the first car suddenly slows down and makes a hairpin turn or veers off in another direction? What happens then? This is where each combatant's intentions come into play. The four basic intentions are close, hold, open, and brake. Close indicates that the driver wants to reduce the distance between his vehicle and its quarry. Maybe he wants to get into weapon range or set up a ram or a side swipe, or just make sure the other fellow doesn't get away. Usually this means he's driving towards the other vehicle or taking on an intercept course. Open means that the driver or pilot is trying to increase the distance between him and his pursuer, perhaps to get out of weapon range or to escape the flight altogether. Generally, this means that the vehicle operator is driving or flying away from the other vehicle. Hold is an in-between category for those times when it's not clear if the operator is moving toward or away from his adversary. It's also useful for remaining at a range where your weapons are better than your opponent's, or when you want to continue following an opponent at the same distance for whatever reason. Brake signifies an intent to get out of the combat via some unusual or abrupt maneuver. Ducking behind a passing asteroid, veering onto the exit ramp at the last moment, putting your aircraft into a steep dive. Breaking contact isn't always an available option. If two vehicles are slugging it out in the open with no cover or complications, there really isn't much a pilot or driver can do to get out of range. Your game master will let you know on a situation by situation basis if a break attempt could work. Note that any attempt to change intentions is considered a moderate maneuver, which requires the vehicle operator to spend an action during a phase in which he is entitled to do so. The combination of both drivers' intentions should make the current status of the battle fairly obvious from phase to phase. Here's how intentions affect the range each phase. All right. Close versus close. The distance between the vehicles drops by the sum of their speeds. Open versus open. The distance between the vehicles increases by the sum of their speeds. Close versus open. The distance between the vehicles changes by the difference in their speeds. The distance decreases if the closing vehicle is moving faster, or it increases if the closing vehicle is the slower of the two. Hold versus hold. No change in relative distance. Hold versus close or open. The distance between the vehicles changes according to the speed of the closing or opening vehicle. Brake versus any. If successful, the brake ends the combat scene. A driver or pilot may decide to shift his intention from time to time during an encounter with another vehicle. Doing this is a simple matter of using maneuvers to change the speed of the vehicle or the direction in which it's moving. Let's see. Prevailing conditions refer to the terrain and environment in which the chase or vehicle battle takes place, usually involving factors that could hamper visibility or make travel more dangerous. For game purposes, the four types of prevailing conditions are clear, normal, crowded, and hazardous. Okay. What are the conditions? Is it going to make it more difficult? That's pretty common sense. Let's see. We're going to skip that sidebar. All right. So, real quick, Glenn, to answer your questions about are there different rules for flying vehicles? I don't think so. all of these rules seem like they could apply regardless. I mean, obviously, like plane versus, well, no, because it's like all of this, like the open and close. Like if you're in a plane going 500 kilometers an hour versus a car going 200 kilometers an hour, well, chances are your plane's going faster, and so you're going to catch the guy. Um, it's yeah, these rules seem easily applied regardless of the type of vehicle that you're using. Um, Obviously, usually you're going to be in similar stuff, so like spacecraft or aircraft or cars. Um, but yeah, I don't see any need to use different vehicles. All right. Cruising speed. A vehicle's cruising speed is the fastest speed at which the vehicle can be safely controlled in a combat or chase situation. If an operator decides to push his craft beyond its cruising speed, a penalty is applied to his vehicle operation checks. +1 if it's exceeded, +3 if the vehicle is pushed all the way to its maximum speed. The game master may decide to invoke this +3 penalty, even if a vessel isn't literally traveling at its maximum speed. For instance, although a sports car's maximum speed is 320 kilometers per hour, an operator should not be able to avoid the +3 penalty by having the car do, quote, only 300 kilometers per hour for an indefinite length of time. Um, yeah, like, I mean, something like that. I mean, that's like, yeah, that's arguing the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law. Um, if I would have no problems if a game master wanted to say, "Oh, you're gonna stick at 300 kilometers per hour forever." Great, yeah, you're gonna start taking penalties for over revving your engines or something like that. All right, failing a vehicle operation check. In addition to possibly not moving according to his intention, an operator who achieves a failure or critical failure result on his vehicle operation skill check could lose control. He must immediately attempt a second vehicle operation skill check and consult table P44, losing control of a vehicle. The possible outcomes are described below. In addition to what's discussed here, the game master may decide that when a vehicle goes out of control, it suffers some sort of mechanical breakdown that could prevent it from functioning properly or even render it useless until repairs are made. Crash. The vehicle strikes any nearby barrier or obstacle in spectacular fashion, suffering impact damage as appropriate for its speed. A spacecraft in deep space can't crash, it goes into a spin instead. But the pilot suffers a +4 penalty on all attempts to regain control. Spin or spin out. The vehicle goes wildly out of control. A car spins out, a plane stalls and begins to lose altitude. The spin or spin out continues until the operator is able to make a successful vehicle operation check. Roll d8 to determine the direction the vehicle ends up facing when the spin ends. The operator can't do anything else until he manages to regain control of the vehicle by making a successful vehicle operation check, and all characters in the vehicle, including the operator, suffer a +2 penalty to any actions they attempt. If the operator of a vehicle that's already in a spin or spin out fails another vehicle operation check and then gets any outcome on table P44, other than under control, the vehicle crashes. Skid or yaw. The vehicle slides at an angle to the right or left while continuing to maintain forward momentum. Roll a d6 to determine which side the vehicle slides toward. The skid or yaw continues until the operator's next available action, at which time he can end the skid immediately by using that action to bring his vehicle under control. Alternatively, he can attempt a vehicle operation check with a +1 penalty. If this check succeeds, he ends the skid and is able to perform a routine maneuver in the same phase. If this check fails, the vehicle crashes or stalls. Under control, the operator either experiences no trouble and continues on his way or manages to get an out of control vehicle back on track. All right. Ramming and crashing. If a vehicle with the intention to close can reach or pass its opponent in the current phase, the driver can attempt to ram his opponent. He has to succeed in a moderate maneuver in order to strike his target. If he fails his vehicle operation check, he misses and continues. 1 second. Sorry. Oh, that's the Game Master guy. No wonder I can't see it. I was trying to see what page I needed to go to. If he fails his vehicle operation check, he misses and continues on his way. Obviously, some rams are easier than others. Hitting a stationary target or a target so big you just can't miss it might be ruled an automatic success by the game master. If a ram occurs, the rammed vehicle's driver makes a vehicle operation check and consults the crash and collision damage table. The column is determined by the velocity of the ramming vehicle. Slow-moving vehicles inflict a lot less damage than fast-moving ones. Use the relative speed to govern ram damage. If two vehicles strike head-on, add their speeds together. If the ramming vehicle is considerably larger or smaller than its target, shift the damage suffered by the victim one column in favor of the bigger vehicle, in effect, increasing the ramming vehicle's speed. For example, a semi moving at 100 kilometers per hour rams a sports car. Normally, the sports car would take damage as indicated in this 61 to 120 column. But since it was flattened by a much bigger vehicle, you'll move it up to the 120 to 300 column, which should wreck the sports car pretty thoroughly. The situation were reversed, the semi would sustain damage on the 21 to 60 column. Okay, I like all of this. I was looking for that other table. All right. The ramming vehicle also suffers damage. The driver or pilot of the ramming vehicle must roll on table P43 as well, but he gains a -1 step bonus to his skill check since he initiated the ram. He's able to prepare himself a little better. Remember that the relative size of the vehicles may force the rammer to roll on a worse column than his victim. It just doesn't pay to drive your sports car into a 60-ton battle tank. Go figure. A crash. One vehicle hitting a stationary object is treated basically the same as a ram. To determine damage to the vehicle, the driver or pilot must roll a vehicle operations skill check and refer to table P43. Use the column indicated by the vehicle's speed. In addition, if the object that the vehicle crashes into isn't as large or as durable as the vehicle, shift the column to the left. One column for objects that are smaller, two columns for objects that are made of less durable material than the vehicle, and three columns for objects that are smaller, less durable, and not anchored in place. Crash damage to the vehicle that crashed can never be less than the amount indicated in the 5 to 20 column. Damage to objects. The damage suffered by an object that struck in a crash is determined by essentially the same procedure outlined above for damage to vehicles. The Game Master Guide has information on the toughness and durability of many different types of objects and structures. Damage to passengers. When a vehicle suffers damage, any passengers inside the vehicle can also suffer damage. How much damage the passengers sustain when a vehicle takes damage from a weapon, collision, or crash depends on the type of damage and whether or not the passengers are properly using safety equipment such as seatbelts, airbags, harnesses, or other restraints. A strapped-in character suffers primary damage one grade less than the primary damage his vehicle suffers. If the vehicle suffers mortal damage, he suffers an equal number of wounds. If he takes wound damage, the strapped-in character takes stun damage, and stun damage to the vehicle has no effect. Before any damage is assessed, the vehicle's armor and the armor being worn by a character are taken into account. If a spaceship is hit for 7 wounds, but its armor stops 4 of those wounds, the strapped-in pilot inside only suffers 3 points of stun damage at most. The character's personal armor may reduce or negate any damage that gets through the vehicle's armor. An unharnessed character isn't using any safety equipment, or he's using it improperly. Such a character gets thrown around when his vehicle takes damage, receiving injuries as he smashes into the vehicle's interior. He sustains damage equal to the damage the vehicle suffers. His personal armor may offset some or all this damage. A motorcycle rider is considered unharnessed. All right, the use of tactics. All right. Any questions? Anyone not understanding all of it? I mean, I realize I'm kind of info dumping a lot of this, but most of it's making sense to me. So I don't know. Let me know. All right. A vehicle operator can make a tactics check by using an action in order to gain an advantage over his opponent. A passenger can make a tactics check by using an action, but it only helps if he can communicate his observations to the vehicle operator, and the operator is inclined to listen. Tactics checks are made according to the tactics skill description on page 89. Successful use of the skill provides a penalty to your opponent's next skill check, indicating that you developed a strategy and employed it against him. Okay. So Is that it? I thought there was gonna be like lists of tactics. Okay, um, so I guess using we're going to, turn. I guess if you're trying to like close or something like that, yeah. And they're trying to do like uh, a moderate maneuver. You know, they'll take a penalty again. Okay, I get that. I just thought there would be more to the I thought the taxes would be like actually like spelled out. All right. Effects of vehicle damage. All vehicles are rated for damage just as characters are, but the effects of damage on vehicles is defined somewhat differently. Stun damage represents cosmetic damage and sometimes minor damage to a vehicle's internal systems. When a vehicle loses more than half of its stun points, its operator must immediately make a successful vehicle operation check to avoid losing control of the vehicle. If he fails, he must proceed to table P44. As long as the vehicle remains in this condition, the operator must take a +1 penalty on all vehicle operation checks. So dings, dents, scratches, cracks in the windshield, things like that. Things that don't truly damage the car, but like especially in like a chase, now you're going to be kind of worried about it. Is the quarter panel now like did the screw come loose and now it's like kind of flopping in the wind, things like that. All right. When a vehicle runs out of stun points, a durability check must be made for the vehicle. A vehicle's skill score for this check is equal to its original stun point total. So a mid-sized car with 10 stun points needs a 10 or less to pass its check. Don't forget to include the modifiers for excessive stun or wound damage. If the vehicle passes its durability check, nothing happens. If the vehicle fails, it conks out and can't be started again until it's repaired or jury-rigged. Stun damage to a vehicle can be repaired during a combat scene by use of the system operation engineering or technical science repair skill, provided the repairer can reach the problem area. All right, makes sense to me. Wound damage. Wounds represent significant damage that affects the overall performance of a vehicle. When a vehicle loses more than half of its wound points, or when it runs out of wound points, the procedure outlined under stun damage above is followed. Damage that inflicts wounds on a vehicle also causes secondary stun damage. For every 2 points of wound damage a vehicle suffers in a single attack, it also suffers 1 point of stun damage. Makes sense. Wound damage can be repaired during a combat scene by use of the system operation engineering or technical science repair skill, provided the repairer can reach the problem area. Mortal damage. Mortal damage represents critical problems that actually destroy portions of a vehicle. Mortal damage requires time and extreme effort to repair, and these repairs usually can't be accomplished during a combat scene. In some cases, mortal damage is so bad that it can only be counteracted by replacing the destroyed portion of the vehicle. For each point of mortal damage a vehicle suffers, its operator receives a +1 penalty to all vehicle operation checks. Each time a vehicle suffers 1 or more points of mortal damage from a single attack, the driver must attempt a vehicle operation skill. Check to keep control of the vehicle is described above, and a durability check must be made for the vehicle. The vehicle's skill score for this check is equal to its original wound point total. So a mid-sized car with 10 wound points needs a 10 or less to pass the check. At a +1 penalty for each point of mortal damage the vehicle is sustained, and don't forget to include the modifiers for excessive stun or wound damage too. So, like, to me, this is like, yeah, okay, fine. The windshield is blown out. The door is busted off. The tires flat. Things like that. So the car is not stopped, but there's problems. If the vehicle passes its durability check, nothing happens. If it fails, it conks out and can't be started again until it's repaired. If a vehicle suffers a critical failure on its check, damage to the fuel tank or power system causes the vehicle to explode. The vehicle is a total loss, and any passengers inside suffer D8 + 1 mortal wounds of energy damage. Anything within 6 meters of the exploding vehicle receives 2d6 + 1 wound of energy damage, and objects or characters from 6 to 12 meters away suffer D8 - 1 wounds of energy damage. Again, personal armor provides normal protection against explosion damage. And then obviously, For every 2 points, you're going to take additional damage on the lower scales. All right. Vehicle scale. Most vehicle combat takes place between vehicles of a similar nature, cars versus cars, jet fighters versus jet fighters, etc. But it can happen that two vehicles that are significantly different in size or speed, or both, will find themselves in opposition. In such a case, locate each vehicle type on table P45. When a vehicle from a higher up on the table meets a vehicle of a lower scale, they can engage in just one round of combat. Then the faster, higher scale vehicle speeds away. Faster vehicle can return another round of combat, return for another round of combat in a number of phases according to table P46, vehicle scale return time. For example, if a jet fighter strafes a car, it can return in 6 phases or approximately 18 seconds. Naturally, these time limits are highly variable. The numbers on the table should be considered as minimums, assuming a situation in which the operator of the faster vehicle tries to reestablish contact as quickly as possible. All right. To answer your I'm picturing horses getting damaged, and when enough parts fall off, they explode. Yes, they do. So, actually, to answer your question, Glenn, what about mounts as vehicles? So, right here, characters, bicycles, armor, animals, jetpacks. Here are the different vehicles. So, personal is smaller than surface vehicles smaller than air vehicles smaller than space vehicles. And then here's the number of phases until re-engagement for the different comparisons. Space vehicles are just going to be going way too fast for personal, things like that. Again, I like the simplicity of all of this. I realize that it's not getting like super granular, but I don't know. It makes sense and I'm understanding it. Obviously, I say that now, and obviously getting it to the table is going to be a completely different experience, but overall, it does make sense to me. All right, getting away. There are 3 ways for a vehicle combat scene to come to an end. First, the destruction or incapacitation of either vehicle usually ends the scene. If your hero makes the tight turn while the bad guys skid off the road into a ditch, they're out of the scene and your hero can go about his business. Of course, a vehicle combat scene that ends this way might be immediately followed by a personal combat scene, if the heroes circle back to capture the villains who are fleeing on foot. Second, a vehicle combat scene ends if no one wants to fight anymore. If both vehicles have the intention to open and both drivers or pilots decide they don't want to press the fight, the scene ends. They've both had enough. Finally, a vehicle can declare the intention to brake in order to get away from a pursuer who isn't ready to give up the chase. Brake isn't always available as an intention. There has to be some unusual condition or ploy involved for a vehicle to be able to change its intention to brake. Typically, the game master will ask you to describe the trick your hero is trying to pull off before he'll let you attempt a maneuver that will break contact. There's not much that a car racing across the Bonneville salt flats could do to suddenly get away from a helicopter gunship. Being faster than the fellow chasing you and opening the distance faster than he can close it definitely counts as a condition in which your hero can break contact. So, simple explanation here is Han Solo diving into the asteroid. Okay. He found a crater and managed a maneuver that took him in and allowed him to hide. If he just said, I keep flying through the asteroids, or, I'm going to go around that big one, maybe the game master is not going to allow it because he's not really doing anything. So, makes sense. All right, vehicle versus character. When a single operator vehicle gets a character on foot, use these rules. Because vehicles are on a higher scale than characters, one round of combat can occur before the vehicle speeds away. The vehicle can return for another round of combat after a number of phases is shown. In the round of combat, the vehicle can make as many as 4 attacks on the character, 1 per phase, plus a ram in the marginal phase. Of course, characters in the vehicle must have available actions to use all of these attacks. Assume that the vehicle will end the ordinary phase right at its target and overshoot in the marginal phase. For example, let's say a car that's moving at 80 kilometers per hour or 80 meters per phase starts the scene 240 meters away from a pedestrian. At the end of the amazing phase, it's 160 meters away. At the end of the good phase, 80 meters away. At the end of the ordinary phase, 0 meters. And at the end of the marginal phase, 80 meters distant and now driving away from the pedestrian it attacked. Many vehicles are targets of good or amazing toughness, which means that personal weapons just aren't very effective against them. More information about firepower and toughness grades appear in Chapter 11. Ramming a character with a vehicle. Running over a pedestrian, 5 points, by the way, who's trying to get out of the way isn't always easy. The victim adds his dexterity-based resistance modifier to the driver's vehicle operation check when the driver actually tries to execute the ram. And he can also attempt an acrobatics dodge skill check. If the pedestrian can't get out of the way, he suffers damage based on the speed of the vehicle that hits him. The victim must make a dexterity feat check and refer to table P43, crash and collision damage. This feat check or skill check is modified by the type of vehicle that strikes him. So, again, size-based. All right. Spaceships. What's in a spaceship? Every hero dreams about owning his own starship. With a ship, a hero no longer has to rely on predictable schedules of commercial liners, the vagaries of working for passage on freighters, or the command structure of military transports. He's the master of his own destiny, able to come or go as he pleases. A ship can become a crucial member of a hero party, especially if it has been equipped with the finest devices that money can buy. You know, like the Millennium Falcon. The typical trader record sheet printed on page 206 provides essential information for the modest sort of space vessel that might come into the possession of a hero at the start of his career. The Game Master Guide has a more detailed record sheet designed to be used in conjunction with the rules in that book concerning customizing of ships and constructing different types of space vessels. Ship compartments. Every spaceship has a certain number of compartments, ranging from only one in the smallest of vessels up to a dozen or more. Each compartment is dedicated to a certain purpose or multiple purposes in smaller ships. When the purpose of a compartment is directly related to the operation of the ship or one of the ship's systems, that compartment will contain a station devoted to that task. To supplement the information given here, the Game Master Guide has full rules for constructing ships and customizing existing models. All right, let's see. Command compartment. Every space vessel must have a command compartment. It contains a ship's main computer, a sensor package, the helm control, and a communication system. Among ships with less than 4 compartments, it is also common for the command compartment to carry a defensive or weapons system. In larger ships with 4 or more compartments, the command compartment is the ship's control center. All crew stations are here, and all major control stations are centralized in this compartment unless specifically placed elsewhere. The ship's main computer monitors ship systems, operates automated functions, and generally allows the crew to interact with the ship and its systems. On ships that are specially constructed, not the stock models described in this chapter, dedicated specialized computers can be added to a specific station or compartment to enhance the performance of that part of the ship. And all right, command station. The ship's commander works from this station using tactics and leadership to get the most out of his crew. Successful tactics checks apply penalties to an opponent's vehicle operation checks as described earlier. Leadership command is used to improve the overall effort of the crew by encouraging teamwork, providing direction, and inspiring confidence with a commanding, forceful air. By making a successful space tactics skill check, the commander can provide the rest of the crew with a warning that translates as a modifier to their action checks in the next round. Skill checks results, critical failure, +2 penalty for all other crew members. Failure, no modifier. Ordinary -1, good ordinary -1 bonus for one other crew member. Good -1 for bonus for all other crew members. Amazing -2 bonus for all others. Pilot station. The pilot flies the ship, determining speed, selecting maneuvers, and plotting courses, and deciding on destinations. In combat, the pilot makes vehicle operation, space vehicle skill checks to perform maneuvers and operate the vessel's primary weapon. Co-pilot station. Co-pilot station can handle any or all of the duties of the pilot. In addition, if a co-pilot uses an action to assist the pilot, this assistance may provide the pilot with a modifier on his next skill check. Sensor station. Typically, sensors are located in the command compartment, though a hero may choose to add a more sophisticated sensor systems pod to a dedicated electronics compartment when he customizes a vessel. Without sensors of some kind, a starship can't see its enemies or defend itself. Sensors consist of sophisticated radar systems, infrared detectors, instantaneous mass detectors, and similar devices. Sensors come in two classes, passive and active. Passive sensors have a longer range and don't give away the ship's position, but they don't provide a very accurate fix on the target. Active sensors require power and can pin down an enemy for an exact firing solution, but they also reveal the ship's location. A ship can't fire accurately at its opponent until it obtains a sensor fix on the target. In addition to scanning and analyzing data from all ship sensing devices, the sensor operator has a few opportunities to make a difference during a combat scene. He can use an action to help the weapons operator hit enemy vessels. A system operations sensors check can provide a modifier to the weapons operator in his next available phase. Or the sensors operator can target specific compartments on an enemy vessel, thus directing where damage from a specified weapon is applied. Finally, he can help the defense's operator protect the ship, providing a modifier to that operator's checks for the rest of the round and all the next round. Communication station. Here at the communication station operates a ship's communication transmitters and receivers and the computers associated with them. During combat, he can send messages to ships or other distant locations, encoding them if desired. The result of a system operation communications check may provide a modifier to decoding attempts made by others. Let's see. If the enemy sends coded transmissions or if the opponent uses an alien language, the hero at the communication station can attempt to decode or translate the messages by making a successful complex skill check. The complexity of the code, in addition to determining the number of successes needed, also provides a modifier to each segment of the complex check. Finally, certain weapon systems, such as missiles and targeting sensors, are susceptible to jamming. The result of the communication operator's skill check may provide a modifier to the weapon or targeting system as follows. Okay. I know, super exciting, folks. Engineering compartment. Every powered space vessel must have an engineering compartment. The ship's engine is located here and often its power plant. A drive unit, if the ship has one, is also here. Although a ship's power plant typically resides in the engineering section, some starships place their primary or secondary power system in an auxiliary compartment. Engineering station. The hero manning the engineering station can have an enormous effect on how his vessel performs during combat. The obvious uses of the station include monitoring other ship systems, tracking damage, and initiating repairs. From the engineering station, a hero can repair stun damage to any ship compartment. A hero at the engineering station can also aid heroes making hands-on repairs in a damaged compartment. Damage control. A character assigned to damage control doesn't have a station. He's the person who heads to a damaged compartment to initiate hands-on repairs. The engineering station interacts with the damage control team. A hero uses the technical science jury rig skill to perform on-the-spot repairs to systems or compartments that have gone offline as a result of taking damage. These repairs are temporary. Technical science repair is necessary to fully restore functionality to damaged systems or compartments. Defense compartment. Many space vehicles have special defenses in addition to their armor. All defenses are controlled by a station in the defense compartment. If a ship has no defense compartment, a defense station is usually located either in the weapons compartment or the command compartment. Some defenses are passive, requiring no special action on the part of the defense's operator. Others can be enhanced by the operator, making it even harder for an attacker to damage the vessel they're protecting. The Game Master Guide has complete information on defenses available at each progress level. Weapons compartments. Smaller vessels are forced to use command compartment space for weapon systems, but many larger ships devote a full compartment to weapons. A weapons compartment often holds a defensive system. The weapons operator has perhaps the most straightforward job of all crew members. He targets enemy vessels and fires the ship's weapons. These weapons work just like any other ranged weapon, except the action is related to the system's operation weapon skill. The success of an attack and the damage the attack causes depends on the weapon operator's skill check. Actions of the opposing crew, defensive systems, and any damage the operator or his or ship has taken may add modifiers to this check. Most weapons can be fired whenever the operator has an available action. And an auxiliary compartment, sometimes referred to as the secondary engineering compartment. The primary function of an auxiliary compartment is to monitor life support and secondary power systems. Electronics compartment. An electronics compartment on a ship large enough to have one is reserved for fragile, valuable systems such as computers and sensors. Electronic defense systems may also be contained here. While rare among smaller vessels, the electronics compartment serves in larger vessels to free up space in the command and weapons compartments. Cargo compartment provides the space necessary to carry anything other than the crew and minimal provisions and supplies. Crew compartment provides living space for crew members or passengers. Depending on the amount of space allotted to each individual, accommodations range from Spartan to luxurious. Specialized areas such as laboratories, sick bays, dining chambers, and ballrooms are often located within a crew compartment. Yes, ballrooms. Other compartments. On large ships, compartments can be added for more cargo space, additional engines, backup power plants, special passenger quarters, hangar bays, medical facilities, sorry, got distracted. Labs or any other purpose the ship's designer sees as necessary or desirable. Space vehicle combat. Space vehicle combat works almost exactly like the vehicle versus vehicle combat described earlier. The only significant differences are the range at which battle can take place, the way in which damage is assessed, and the effect of damage. When a space vehicle has multiple stations and room for more than one operator, then there's something for everyone to do. Specifically, characters use system operation skill checks. How the various system operation skills are used is described in the preceding section. In a combat scene, communications, engineering, sensors, defenses, and weapon skills are likely to come into play, as well as the pilot's skill in vehicle operation space vehicles. Maneuver and range. Okay, that I'm not going to read all of that because it's the same thing. It's just, faster and farther apart. But again, you're just dealing with spacecraft ranges, so everything is relative. It's not a problem. Doing damage. To destroy a space vessel, you have to destroy each of its compartments. When a ship is struck by weapons fire, the damage is not applied to a single set of stun, wound, or mortal points. Instead, the damage is localized in one of the ship's compartments. It's possible to destroy one compartment while leaving the rest of the ship largely unaffected. Each ship compartment has a separate durability rating. Most space vessels that heroes have access to contain 2 to 8 compartments. The early part of this chapter describes many common space vessels, including the trader class craft detailed on pages 206 and 7. The attacker is not using sensors to target a specific location, or if the sensor operator fails in his attempt, then the damage is applied to a compartment determined at random by a d20 roll. The ship descriptions earlier in this chapter include random damage listings for each type of craft. Stun damage works just like normal vehicles. Wound damage, just like normal vehicles. Overall space combat looks like it's more or less the same. Obviously you'll use things like why'd my brain turn off? You'll use things like penalties for being exposed to vacuum or needing emergency suits, things like that. But otherwise it more or less seems the exact same, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. All right, that's weapons, armor, and vehicles. We got through both chapters like I was planning, so that's great. Any questions? Anything not make any sense? Um, I mean, honestly, thought it all I thought it all made sense. So, I don't have any questions. Um, yeah, I I need to get this to the table. I need to get anything to the table, but that's a separate issue. Um, but yeah, I think the weapons make sense, the armor makes sense. Um, let's see. Since damage on ships is localized, you need to have a ship plan to determine if you can reach one compartment to another when something is destroyed. I think so. It said 206 and 207. So this is like the typical record sheet for a ship. And then here's your starship with essentially, so here's an auxiliary compartment, engineering compartment. So essentially all of these are laid out as far as what all of your compartments are. So I think having that is going to be a good thing. Because yeah, if you destroy the command compartment, well, I mean, that doesn't necessarily affect the auxiliary compartment because they're too far away. But then, damaging a cargo hold absolutely would, you'd have to break cargo hold 1 to get to. So 12 is a cargo hold, 11 is the crane control. So yeah, I would say the hallways don't count as compartments. Keep in mind this is a late 90s role-playing game. So very much more theater of the mind. This is before 3rd edition came out. So even though we've got maps, I mean, they're not like hardcore tactical maps. It's more or less like general kind of information. So yeah, I think having it for a reference is important, but I don't think it's but I think they're still pushing for just kind of theater of the mind kind of stuff. But overall, again, it makes sense. I like it. So there we go. There's vehicle combat, there's weapons and armor, all that fun stuff. So with that said, I will be back tomorrow and we are going to finish the player's guide. We're going to do mutants, cybernetics, and psionics. We're going next Monday, we're going to be starting Battletech Gothic. Again, same time period, about 8:30 my time. Plus or minus, depends on getting out of work and that kind of stuff. And then starting next Tuesday, we're going to be doing Batman, the role-playing game from Monolith. So do make sure that you come back for those. Make sure you're subscribed so that you get notified when those live streams go up. And other than that, I'll just keep plugging away and getting read through on these books and having some fun doing it. So thanks for watching, everybody. I've got to bounce. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.